Hey all, welcome back to Strength Lab 360 and our video series on how to structure your training. Today we're going to talk about training load, workload, as well as progression. So as we've touched on in our last video, the workload is the key measurement we use to assess how much work you did in your session. And then based on your workload, we will progress your training session to session. So quick recap on workload, it means the total amount of sets times total amount of reps times the overall weight that you've moved. So if you did 4 sets of 10 reps on squats with 10 kilos, your workload would have been 400 kilos. And then is where your progressive overload comes in, because if you do that in week 1, you're going to be wanting to increase that to week 2, and then from there you want to keep increasing that each session. So for argument's sake, let's say we increase it by 10%. So week 2, you'll be doing 440 kilos of workload in order to hit that progression and make sure that you do everything needed in order to build muscle or improve your strength. Progressive overload, as you definitely will have heard before, is the key component, because if you keep lifting the same weight, it will probably get easier, but you will not experience the results that you would if you would increase the workload from week to week. This is the first point where the Strength Lab 360 app comes in, because the app will increase your workload for you, then break it down into your sets and reps that you have preset, and it will make sure that no matter which state you're in, you feel very, very strong today or you have a bad day, you will always increase your workload. Based on your RPE feedback, we're going to adjust the amount of sets, reps, or the weight that you're doing, whilst keeping in mind that increasing the workload is the key determinant in making sure that you reach the goals and make the progress that you are looking for. The main problem, and I've also found that to be the case with myself, as well as when I was training clients, the calculation of your progressive overload, how much you should increase the weight, is not the biggest of problems. It's obviously nice if the app does it for you, but that's something that you could do. Where you will run into trouble is calculating your progressive overload if you miss a set, if you miss a rep, or if the weight just is too heavy for you and you have to drop the weight. That's where you get into a problem, because now you have to calculate, okay, what have I done already? How much do I need to decrease the weight and increase the sets to make sure that the workload overall will still be higher compared to last week? And that's where the app shines, because with the algorithm, you don't have to worry about a thing. You put in your RPE, and if it's too heavy, the app is, okay, we'll adjust it so that it's a manageable weight, but it's still more than last week in terms of workload. So with using and utilizing the Strength Lab 360 app, by inputting your RPE correctly, it's a fail-safe mechanism, and you will always progress from week to week. You will not take a step back. There will always be progressive overload. In terms of training load measures your overall readiness for training. So workload will affect training load. If you have a constantly very high workload and you increase it week on week, there will be a point at which you will not be able, in that specific workload setting, to keep increasing it. Your training load depends on a variety of factors. First, it's your work that you do inside the gym. Second, it's the work that you do outside of the gym, because most of us don't train for a living. So if you have a manual job, for example, your training load will be affected more than if you have a sedentary job where you sit at a computer all day. Nevertheless, your work, regardless of the intensity, will influence your training load. Training load will also be tracked through the Strength Lab 360 app with our proprietary algorithm, which takes into account a variety of individual factors to determine your training readiness. If you, for example, want to feel for yourself whether you're training ready, there are some exercises that you can actually do in the gym to figure out whether you're ready for training or not. I always recommend to get a good feeling for your own body and to know whether you're training ready or not. If you have a hard time for yourself establishing whether your training load is too high, too little, or just right, One quick exercise is a grip test. You've probably seen the grip handles that you can just grip. If you can determine what is your 1 rep max on that, then you have some indication if it's much lower at the start of the training or much higher. You have somewhat of an indication of your training readiness. Factors that you can consider if you know yourself and your body well, you can look at things like your sleep. How are you sleeping? What's the duration? How deep do you sleep? Obviously, if you're using wearable devices to track your heart rate, you can look at heart rate variability, you can look at your REM and non-REM sleep. There's a bunch of things that those devices will allow you to check. It's obviously also influenced by your recovery. I would probably put sleep into the recovery part, so nutrition and sleep as recovery in general will increase or improve your training readiness and therefore impact your training load and how overall fatigued you'll feel. To sum it up, workload is a session-based or exercise-based number, and that is what will be increased from week to week or from session to session. And training load is how that workload affects you and how the previous workload of the previous week might affect your next week. If you have any questions regarding workload, training load, or progressive overload, comment below. We'll be sure to answer those questions. If you have any comments, any suggestions on what we should do next as an exercise video, as a video of how to structure your training, also comment below. Otherwise, I will see you here for the next episode.